Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and this is another episode of It Came From the Network. Now, if you haven't seen this show before, this is where we review all the weird, wild, campy, and sometimes just downright bad stuff that's on the WWE Network. Now we're going to go into WWE Capitol Punishment 2011. Probably one of the newer ones that I'm going to review just because sometimes things get better with age. Unfortunately, as we'll see, this one is still bad wine at this point. We're going to jump right into it. First, we're going to talk about the commentary team: Booker T, Jerry the King Lawler, and Michael Cole. Probably the worst team WWE has thrown onto pay-per-views in a long time. They at least 3 of the matches on the show, they questioned the finish. They weren't on with the finish. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, or if they just didn't read the call sheets. Just came off bad, miscalled moves, especially from Booker T and Michael Cole. Booker T utterly failed as a commentator, in my opinion. Coming from being one of the best in-ring talkers of his generation when he was a wrestler, he did not pan out as a commentator, and I thought it was a perfect role for him because of how good of a talker he was. But anyway, let's get into the action. First match of the night is Kofi King, the U.S. champion, defending against Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler with his somewhat girlfriend of the time, Vicky Guerrero. Okay match that ended kind of weird. Ziggler puts on the sleeper hold. They roll to the middle of the ring. This was one of the matches that the commentary team didn't know the ending because the ref calls for the bell. However, Kofi didn't tap out. They don't know what happened. They don't know why. It's found out that Kofi passed out to a sleeper hold like this is 1975 wrestling. Ziggler wins the U.S. title. Decent match with a bad ending and very bad commentary. Left a weird taste in my mouth afterwards. Next up, we have The Miz versus Alex Riley. This is only a few months after The Miz was the main event at WrestleMania. Now he's down to wrestling his former flunky and ends up losing the match. Not a horrible match, not a great match. I thought it was going to be, at the time, it seemed to be something that would propel Alex Riley into bigger and better things. Unfortunately, as of yet, it has not done that great for his career. He had a short boost, and then that was taken away with really fast. So it was a decent win for Riley. At the time, it was probably better received than it is now in hindsight. But a decent match. So far, the first 2 matches decent, not great. Which leads us into our third match. Alberto Del Rio versus The Big Show. Now, the backstory, in case you didn't remember, is Ricardo Rodriguez, Alberto Del Rio's personal ring announcer, accidentally ran into The Big Show with Alberto Del Rio's car a few weeks before the show, injuring his knee, which puts Big Show in this with an injury. He gets attacked before the match versus Mark Henry, who targets the knee. The whole match, Del Rio is on the offensive, attacking the knee, puts him in a leg bar submission, kind of variation on the arm bar or the cross arm breaker he uses. Show doesn't tap. However, the match ends, and this is the second time that the commentary has no clue why the match is ending, when the ref stops it because Big Show can't continue. Would it have hurt the Big Show to submit after being attacked by Mark Henry and already having a leg injury for him to submit to Alberto Del Rio? No. That's why I don't get this ending. To me, this was a bad match. To me, this was show flexing his muscle, saying, I'm not going to do a clean job to this guy, where I don't know if the booking made the decision or show stood up and said he's not going to just submit. But in all honesty, he should have just submitted a leg lock and gave Alberto Del Rio the rub coming off of that, but he did not. Next up, we have probably one of the most promising young wrestlers that was on the show, Wade Barrett, the Intercontinental Champion, wrestling Ezekiel Jackson, who at the time they had big hopes and wishes for. In an absolutely clunky match, Ezekiel Jackson will never be Rey Mysterio in the ring. He had some solid in-ring competitions. This was not one of them. This was very clunky. Barrett was still early enough in his WWE run that he didn't carry the match. You know, I don't know if he couldn't or it's just you can't do nothing with Ezekiel. But the match ended up being very clunky. Ezekiel Jackson wins with the torture rack. It's funny how when you look back at things like this and you remember how much of a push a guy like Ezekiel Jackson got that evolved into absolutely nothing and ended up where about 3 years after the show he's already no longer with the company and he was getting a monster push just 3 years before. Now next up is definitely the match of the night, Rey Mysterio versus CM Punk. At the time, CM Punk was in full heel mode. This was still a few months away from his infamous pipe bomb segment, where he had a groundswell of support from the fans. He had a lot of cheers during the match. The two of these guys, anytime they ever matched up, put on absolutely great wrestling matches. This was no question to that. This is definitely the highlight of the show. If you go back and you watch anything from the show, this is the match to watch. CM Punk picks up a very big win in his career at that time. Again, this is before the pipe bomb, so CM Punk wasn't looked at as the main event talent that he would become post pipe bomb, but still a win over Rey Mysterio, even if he came back and did it now, would be a huge thing for him as well. Next up, we have the World Heavyweight Championship match, aka the Big Gold Belt. Randy Orton versus Christian. Backstory, Christian looking for one more match. This was what started that way back 3 years ago and still using that catchphrase now. The match was okay. Nothing great. The two of them have had better matches in their careers. Orton wins at the end where Christian's legs under the rope. After the match, we see Christian bitching and complaining to the ref that his leg was under the rope, only to catch a RKO. And this was the third of the pre-mentioned things I said the commentary team had no clue what was going on or why they ended, or if it should have been ended that way. Again, when the commentary team takes away from a match that's mediocre, it makes the match bad. If you were have somebody on commentary like a Jim Ross, a Joey Styles, a Lance Russell, some of the actual really good commentators in the history of wrestling, Bobby Heenan, Gorilla Monsoon team, they could take a mediocre match and make it good. And they could take a good match and make it great. And they could take a great match and make it legendary. Unfortunately, you put on Booker T, Jerry Lawler, and Michael Cole, and it takes a mediocre match and makes it crap. Which is kind of what happened with most of the card through the night. The next match we had was Jack Swagger versus Evan Bourne. Evan Bourne picks up the win. Again, this was a lot like the Barrett-Ezekiel Jackson match. Their styles just didn't clash well. It didn't work out well. I just never got into the match, and it was never, I don't know, just to me, it was very boring of a match, very anticlimactic. Again, I'm going to harp on this, but I guess I have to. The commentary so bad that it dragged it down. and Evan Bourne picked up the win on that one. Now, coming off of that, we get one of those things every now and again. These things happen in professional wrestling that make us embarrassed to be wrestling fans. The catch of the night was it was Capital Combat, I'm sorry. That was a different show, and I'm having flashbacks on that. Capitol Punishment in Washington, D.C. All night they did little backstage skits with a Barack Obama impersonator. Santino had one. R-Truth had a thing. They bring the impersonator to the ring, which brings out Booker T. And Booker T and the Obama impersonator do spin-a-ring knees together. Somewhere, somebody in the back, probably Vince McMahon, is laughing his ass off. Because we get segments like this with the impersonators, the Donald Trump impersonator, the Rosie O'Donnell impersonator, the presidential impersonators, whether it be Bush or Obama. We get these every now and again, and it's just embarrassing. It's not funny. None of the crowd thinks it's funny. Nobody laughs. The only person laughing is Michael Cole on commentary, and it's because he's being paid to laugh. But to do this, especially leading into a main event, is just dumbfounding. How boring and how stupid this was. Which leads to our main event. R-Truth versus John Cena. If you don't remember, this was R-Truth turning heel when he first brought up Little Jimmy as an insult to the fans of John Cena, and somewhat going crazy and being lazy during his match. This was a time that we seen him stop and take a water break, or he was smoking during a match at one point, which leads us into this match. A good match. I mean, for the two competitors, they did their best. I will honestly say John Cena and R-Truth, other than CM Punk and Rey Mysterio, probably the second best match of the night. That being said, the finish of the match, much like the first match on the night, was utter crap. A fan throws R-Truth tape goes to get a cup of water from a ringside fan. He throws it in the face, which leads us to an attitude adjustment for the win. John Cena wins. Everybody rejoices. The show goes off the air. Probably everybody's happy because their torture is done. Basically, a whole lot of clunky, bad matches. R-Truth, while probably deserved a title match at some point, he never came off as a serious contender to a world championship. Ezekiel Jackson probably never deserved to be any of the championships, whether it be the ECW or the Intercontinental title at this point. The Dolph Ziggler winning the U.S. title, very anticlimactic. Miz vs. A-Rod was just a mess of a match, along with Swagger and Bourne, and along with Alberto Del Rio. And Big Show, just some bad finishes, some bad booking decisions, and all in all, it played out like a really bad episode of Monday Night Raw, and I feel bad for anybody that purchased this at the time. I hope that you asked for your money back, because this was just a bad show. And coming off of that, because I want to get this bad taste out of my mouth as quickly as I can, we're going to go right into our ratings. Now, if you've seen our show before, we have a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. 1's a Gobbledygooker, 2's a Renegade, 3's a Hurricane Helms, 4's a Gold Dust, and 5 is a King. I'm going to give this a 2, a Renegade, basically on the back of the Rey Mysterio CM Punk match, the shining light that comes through the pile of shit. Everything else on the card, I would never watch again. If you want to watch anything on this and you have the WWE Network, just watch the Mysterio Punk match. It's a decent match. It's a really good match. And a bunch of surrounded by a bunch of failures in comedy, a horrible announcing job, which was like a rock being put around the neck of everybody. It slowed everything down, made the show much worse than it had to be. But basically, that's all I have to say about that. My name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of It Came From the Network.